Hey kids, it's Mr. Fly here, hope you're well, and welcome to the first in a brand new series here on the channel called Your Questions Answered, and it's no surprise to learn that what it's about is me answering some of your questions. Well, if that hasn't put you off, welcome along to the channel once again and to this brand new, what I hope is going to be an occasional series here on the channel where I take the opportunity to put a bit more into answering the comments and questions that are left on some of my videos, in particular the last bike news video, but also other questions that come up on other videos that I've posted since. If you've left a comment there and I haven't answered your question, it might be because I've got it written down on this bit of paper and I intend answering it now. So if this goes all right and you like the format, then I'll probably do them in future. Think of it as kind of... you can think of it as a podcast if you like. So if you're doing something else, you don't necessarily need to watch my ugly mug on here because that's all it's going to be. There's going to be nothing else other than my talking head. If you want to stick your headphones in and use it as a cure for insomnia when you go to bed, or maybe put it on the background when you're doing the ironing or something else, then that's probably the best use for it. So yeah, it's not going to be a complicated video. It's just going to be me answering your questions. All right. So without further ado, shall we crack on? Right, let's do that. So. First question is from somebody called Stevo7454. Oh, actually, before I carry on, let me just see what the time is because I want to see how long this takes. I want to try if I do it about half an hour-ish. We'll go for that. Anyway, from Stevo7454. Hello, Stevo. He says, hey, I'm an avid watcher of pretty much all your vids, being similar age and started riding pretty much the same year as you too. Excellent. My only question would be, how and why did you decide to get into making or turning yourself into a YouTube? Cheers, Stevo. Well, I guess you mean a YouTuber, Stevo, as opposed to an actual YouTube, whatever one of those is. So the question is, how and why did I decide to get into it? Well, it's a fairly familiar story that whenever I've seen other YouTubers asked about this, they often come out with a similar story. Mine's nothing unusual. Basically what it is, I've always been interested in photography. I've had an SLR camera ever since I was about the age of 8. I think I had one for a Christmas present. Oh, Happy New Year, by the way. If it's not too late to say that now. Don't know when it becomes unfashionable to stop saying Happy New Year, do you? But anyway, Happy New Year if I've not said it to you already. Yeah, so I got an SLR camera. It's an old Praktica MTL5, I seem to remember, when I was about 8 years old. Loved that. And that got me into photography, and I've been into photography ever since. Then, as the years progressed, I got into flying like aeroplanes, I got into motorcycling, and I was a keen skier. So all things that are kind of regarded, even though I'm not an action person, as kind of action sports. And around that same time, we're talking about 11, 12 years ago, GoPro cameras were just coming on the scene. So I bought myself a Hero, I think it was the Hero 2 was the first one I got, with the intention of teaching myself how to use that in my flying, biking and skiing, and seeing if I could teach myself editing, and so I could do some video editing, because it was just kind of an extension of the photography. Anyway, that I did. Oh, and the other bit of background is, my day job at the time was I was an IT consultant. My background is in computing. I've got a degree in computing, so I had a sort of a bit of a technical understanding about computers as well. Anyway, add all those things together, and actually it makes quite a good recipe, doesn't it, for producing YouTube videos. Anyway, I popped up some of those early videos that I made onto YouTube because it was just a thing that was coming out, and the idea was my friends and family could see, what I've been up to. Which they did, and that all worked fine. But I noticed that the motorcycling ones started to take off, and I used to get people that weren't my friends and family watching and commenting on the videos, and it was great. I thoroughly enjoyed the sort of interaction that we had, and it gave you a bit of a thrill and a buzz to do that, just like it still does today, in fact. And I thoroughly enjoyed the whole process, so it became sort of a hobby. So I continued to do that. I would put out a video, I don't know, a couple of videos a month, something like that, and more people would start to watch them, and some people would come back, and I had regular viewers, and it was all great. And then YouTube came into this thing where they started to actually pay you money. So it kind of snowballed from there. So that was the how and why I got into YouTube. It was just it was a hobby that turned out was come good, and I still regard it as a hobby. By the way, I absolutely love making YouTube videos. I love every aspect of it. I love the photography, the thinking about what you're going to film, the actual riding the bikes, the answering the questions, the technical bits behind it, everything about it I love. So I'm really glad that I did that. What a good stroke of luck that YouTube came along, eh? So thank you, Steve-O, for your question. Next question from the Real Rebel Canuck, or is it Canuck? I don't know. I think this is a Canadian thing, a Canuck. I'm not sure. Maybe, and I feel a bit embarrassed to say this because I know Real Rebel Canuck, you're a regular contributor to the channel, aren't you? We've exchanged a lot of comments over the years, haven't we? So I'm embarrassed to say I'm not quite sure what your name there means and where it's from. I'm assuming Canadian, but maybe you can drop me a message in the comments below. just telling me the background to that name. I'd be interested. And also maybe spell it out phonetically so I don't get it wrong next time. Anyway, question for your new series, he says, or she, is there a motorcycle that you've recently ridden in which you feel your level of skill exceeds the capabilities of the bike? It's an interesting one. If so, how did that realisation affect your riding experience and your opinion of that bike? Thanks for the news. Well, you're welcome, Real Rebel Canuck, and thanks for your question once again. So this is an interesting spin, because I don't regard myself as a very skillful motorcyclist. I'm just an average rider, as I assume most of the people watching these videos are. I'm not a particularly great rider, so usually it's the case that the motorcycle way exceeds my abilities, particularly when you're into hairy, leery sports bikes and so on, as you will have noticed on my videos. So I guess off the top of my head, I'm just thinking about, is any motorcycle that I've felt my level of skill exceeds the capabilities? Not really is the answer to that. There are a couple of exceptions on a couple of videos that are coming up, actually, so I won't say too much on it, but they were both electric bikes. But they weren't the particularly high power, hairy, leery ones like the Zero DSR I rode a couple of years ago, which was a properly powerful machine. These are lower grade commuter type motorcycles. Perhaps I had a little bit of that there, where I felt, because they were speed limited, I won't go into too much detail because I don't want to spoil the videos for you, but one of them I think topped out at 47 miles an hour. I did feel that perhaps could have been a bit faster, but then I wasn't riding it in the urban environment. I was on the open road, so it was a bit unfair really, because they're really designed for the urban environment. So I think the answer, the real proper answer to your question is no. I haven't ridden a bike where I think my skill level exceeds the capabilities of the bike. So yeah, but a good question, and one that made me think. Thank you, Real Rebel Canuck, and do keep watching. Thanks for all your support and comments over the years. Next up, David Cook 99999. Why not set up a second channel just for tour videos? And I think this comes, David, probably when I was talking about, I think on Bike News in Parish Notices, I was saying that I've just done that big tour, the Alaska and Pacific Northwest tour, where I said that not so many people watch the tour videos compared to bike reviews. So I guess, and also I'd had, not complaints, but I'd had people saying that the tour went on too long and they didn't enjoy the tour. I probably had the same or maybe more numbers, by the way, that said they did love the tour. So it's kind of, you can't keep everybody happy all the time, can you? But I did run that one slightly differently, in that for the first time I ran each tour episode one after the other. So you didn't get bike reviews during it. You got the odd bike news, but that was about it. So that was a new thing, and I did ask for feedback on that first. I asked my patrons, I think I put a note out on YouTube as well, saying, how do you want me to publish this tour? Do you want it one after the other? And overwhelmingly people said they wanted the episodes one after the other, as I did. But to me, it just didn't feel like that worked so well. So future tours, I will put them out in sequence, of course, but I will have other videos in between episodes, and we'll see how that goes. But I think that's preferable, David, to having a second channel, and I'll tell you for why. There is an overhead associated with running just a single YouTube channel. So although I love doing this, I mean, I do put a lot of effort and a lot of time into it. I publish 2 videos a week, which may not sound like much, but there's quite a lot that goes on in the background. It's not just the filming and the editing, but there's the answering all the comments probably takes most of my time, but also the arranging them in the first place. There is a degree of design and writing the videos. You need to understand the shape of what it is you're going to do. There's a lot of toing and froing. If it's bike reviews, then toing and froing with manufacturers, PR people, that sort of thing, and physically receiving the bikes and sending them away and all that kind of stuff. So there's quite a lot of effort that goes into it. And if I had a second channel just for the tour videos, number one, it wouldn't get as many views because there would be all tour videos, and then it would double my overhead in terms of the the housekeeping required to manage the channel, as I say, of which there is some. And then the other thing, of course, is if they're all in one channel, that helps for the algorithm, the dreaded algorithm that you'll hear about that YouTube uses to promote your videos. So I think I'm probably better off, and I have thought about having a second channel. I think you're probably better off having them all in one channel. I note where other YouTubers have come up with a second channel, it doesn't always work so well. It doesn't seem to. You'd have to ask them about it, but the ones I'm thinking of are Teapot1, that has his live stream channel, doesn't he, the brew time thing, and then Moto Bob, that I know had, I can't remember what he called it, I think it was Moto Bob Vlogs, was a second channel. And again, if you compare the views they get on those channels against their prime channel, they're not much, and of course they take a lot of effort to do it. So anyway, long answer, David, thanks for the question. So yeah, that's why I'm not setting up a second channel. I think it's more work and it doesn't actually gain me anything. I think in fact it might lose me something. Alright, thank you for that. Next one, Gary Shuttleworth 3459. What is it with all these numbers after usernames? I don't know, or whatever we call these names. Or is that me cutting and pasting them wrong? Most people seem to have numbers Maybe that's me doing a funny cut and paste. Anyway, Gary Shuttleworth. Interested in your name here, Gary. Because Shuttleworth, whenever I hear Shuttleworth, I think of the Shuttleworth collection up at Old Warden. If you're not on Aviation Anorak like myself, that is it's a collection of aircraft up in Bedfordshire, and they have air shows there. It's not an airfield, and it's called the Shuttleworth collection. So I'm wondering, Gary, if you're linked to that in any way. Anyway, all the best for 2023. Keep up the great work. I'll try my best. Question not bike related. If you could fly any plane, prop or jet, what would it be? There you go. It's an aeroplane question. So now I am thinking you maybe something to do with the Shuttleworth collection. Let me know, Gary, in the comments below this video. Where'd you get your name from? So yeah, great question. If you could fly any plane, prop or jet, what would it be? So that assumes I've got the right license and the skill to do so. It's an easy answer, actually. My favourite plane in all the world is the one that you can see over my shoulder. That shoulder? There, that little model there. That's a P-51 Mustang. That one's in the colours actually of an RAF squadron based in Hunsdon in Hertfordshire, which has a personal link to me. Yeah, that is my favourite aeroplane of all time, but it's very closely followed by the Spitfire. So a Mustang or Spitfire would do. Mustang just nudges it. But there's plenty of other planes I'd like to fly as well, things like Mosquitoes. These are Merlin-powered, excellent bits of kit. I'd love to fly a Mosquito. That was a beautiful plane. And then the other plane that comes close is the Hawker Sea Fury, which has just got an incredibly powerful piston engine. I think one of the most powerful piston engines ever made, and it's just a beautiful looking aircraft. It came in a bit too late for the Second World War, but an amazing aircraft. I saw it at the Reno Air Races a couple of years back. They've got some souped up ones, and those things absolutely fly in every meaning of the word. Anyway, let's not go too far down the airplane rat hole. I could do a whole podcast just on aircraft. There's a thought. Anyway, so thanks for that, Gary. So yeah, let's go with Mustang, shall we? I'm now thinking about jets as well. An F-16 would be nice, wouldn't it? Anyway, a private F-16 painted in green and gold with TMF written on the side. How good would that be? Right, moving on. Thanks, Gary. Great question. Enjoyed that. Richard.C3901. Is the 390? Did you put that there or have I put that there? I don't know. I'm still not sure how they've made a three-wheeled scooter suitable for car drivers, says Richard. And I think this refers to, again, I think it was the last bike news, I talked about, I think it was a Piaggio three-wheeler that was out and about, and I said you could drive it on a car licence. Whereas if you remember the Yamaha Nikon, you couldn't ride that out of a motorcycle licence for that one. You couldn't do that on a car licence. So Richard's asking... I'm still not sure how they made a three-wheel scooter suitable for car drivers, albeit those with pre-2013 licences, yet the Nikon, you need a full bike licence. Have they used some kind of loophole, such as recording it as a three-wheeled car on the V5? Well, sort of, yes, in a way, Richard. I think, as my understanding, the rules and regulations are, it's defined as a car if those front wheels, the distance between them, are over a certain amount. So, in the case of I think it was a Piaggio of some sort, or it might have been a Peugeot, anyway, whatever it was, those wheels are obviously far enough apart for it to count as a car. On the Nikon, they were actually too narrow, and it was regarded as a motorcycle. Of course, if the wheels are too wide, then you lose some of the advantages of having the vehicle altogether, don't you? If they're too wide, then you can't do filtering and nipping in and out of gaps like you would on a motorcycle, and you're back into the difficulties of having a car. So I guess you make a choice. And then, of course, there is this thing about it, you don't have to have a bike licence if you're driving one of the ones with the wider wheels. Anyway, that's my understanding. I'm no expert on this. That's just what I've always been led to believe. I might be talking absolute baloney, but I think that's right, Richard. If anyone watching knows any different, let me know in the comments below. I'm always learning when I read the comments. That's one of the great things about it. And if you can put me right on that, then maybe I could read it out on the next Your Questions Answered. So thanks for that, Richard. That's my understanding on that one. Right, next up. From some of these pronunciations I'm going to get wrong tonight. I do apologise. Papachis 9535. Papachis 9535. He said, when one unlocks a feature on a vehicle via a subscription model, who pays for it when it breaks? Now, this comes from the comments I made, again, in Bike News, which was the one that got the most feedback, actually, which was about, I think it was KTM using the new, well, I know it was KTM, who've come up with this new subscription model for some of the accessories on their bikes. And I think I might have got this wrong, actually, so I'll take this opportunity to maybe straighten things out, or at least ask for your help in getting this right. And I think what I said is if you wanted things like heated grips, you had to pay a monthly fee to have those turned on and kept turned on. Well, I don't think that's actually the case. I've had a few people write to me and say, actually, what it is you get the bike, they're turned off, and then if you want to enable heated grips, it's a one-off price, and then you've got the heated grips forevermore. So that's better, but I still don't quite like it. And then the other thing is, of course, allied to that story, and I think I mentioned it in Bike News, or whether I've read it since, is that actually, or somebody may have commented actually and put me straight on this, that now what they're doing, or what they're always doing, is for the first 1,500 kilometres, i.e. when you're running the bike in, you get all those features enabled. And then at the end of the 1,500 kilometre period, you can decide which of those features you want to keep, and then you pay for them in the subscription model. So I don't know what you think about that. It's better than the monthly payment thing that I thought it was about, but it still leaves a bit of a bad taste in my mouth. Apparently, again, a number of you commented on my videos that actually this isn't that unusual. This is what the likes of some of the car manufacturers have been doing for a while. BMW was one that people mentioned. So maybe this is the way it's going to go. It's such a shame if that is the case, I think, because it just, something about it just smells wrong to me, doesn't it? But anyway, that's what that was about. So thank you, Papachis9535, for your comment. Who pays for it when it breaks? Good question. But if it's just a one-off price, then of course you own that feature once you've bought it. So it's slightly different to how I implied it. So hopefully that might have cleared it up. It might just have confused people more, don't know. Anyway, I'm sure we'll hear more about that over the next months and years. Right, next up. Motomags7164, he or she says, might be a she, Maggie perhaps, here's one for your new Q&A. If you could only have one bike, which would it be? Well, that's a question I get asked an awful lot, and you've obviously not heard me answer it before. That's probably the most common question I get asked, and it's a very easy answer. It's the GS, and the reason is because, and it's probably the same reason why it's such a popular motorcycle, one of the best sellers it has been for the last 10 years plus, isn't it? Is that it's just so versatile. It does everything really well. It's not great at any one thing, but it's pretty good at most things. If you can only have one bike, that's the one for me. It's fun if you take it away on touring. You can go touring on it. You can take a pillion on it in great comfort. You can ride massive miles on it. You can ride it to work every day. You can even go off-road on it. There aren't many bikes that can do absolutely all that stuff as well as the GS can. So if it's only one bike, I go for that. If you're in the enviable position, as I'm fortunate enough to say I am, to have several bikes, then you can afford to buy bikes for different purposes, can't you? I like retro bikes because they're great on a Sunday afternoon. I love my Goldwing because it's perfect for two-up riding, better than a GS in fact for that, but it's not much good at anything. It's certainly no good at off-roading, although I do know that people do that. So it's the GS for me. What would you have out of interest? Anyone got any other bikes that they would have if they were only going to have one bike? And if you have only got one bike, what have you chosen? Stick it in the comments below. I'd love to do a little poll. I'm assuming everybody's going to say GS, but if you've got some other one, let me know. That'd be fascinating reading. All right, thank you for that, Motomags. Next up, NBMBC40. This is from, thank you, NBMBC40. Can somebody have a name that's easy for me to roll off the tongue? Always enjoy bike news and some great videos coming up. Thank you, glad you think so. Question for you. Why did you start riding motorbikes? Okay, so this isn't why did I get into YouTubing, but why did I start riding motorbikes? And good question. I started riding motorbikes when I was a kid, basically, when I was like a teenager. That was the time that fizzies were out there, Yamaha 50cc mopeds, and we used to ride them around the fields. And you could, when I think you were 16, you were legally allowed to have one. My mum and dad didn't let me have one, but that's when I got into it. That's when I got my love for motorcycling. And why did you start riding? I guess the why is all the things that we share together. I expect is I physically like the machines. I am a petrol head. I love bikes. I love cars. I love airplanes. Obviously, anything with an engine in, basically, I love. So there's that. The physical machine I like. The engineering within it. I like the element of skill of actually controlling it, having that machine under your control. I love that, and that's the same for driving a car and flying a plane as well. Exactly the same thing. And of course, I love the feeling it gives you. That feeling of freedom, again, which you get in a car and a plane as well to a degree. It might be a full sense of freedom, but certainly it makes you feel that you can go anywhere and do anything, doesn't it? And then of course the biggest one is it just makes you feel good. It just puts a smile on your face. And in the case of motorbikes, they're cool as well, aren't they? So it's all those things. I think it's the bike itself, it's the riding it, it's the freedom, it's the opportunity it gives you, it's the grin it puts on your face. It's all those things, and I'm sure there aren't too many people watching this video that would disagree with that. If there's something else that got you into them, let me know. Also, of course, I suppose other reasons would be it's cheaper than a car, or certainly it used to be, not so much the case now. I don't know, maybe other reasons, but they're the reasons I got into it. Main one being it's fun and it's cool, I guess. So thanks for that, NBM BC40. Next one. from, again, regular contributors to the channel. So hello to Cindy and Steve Lind, 2810, it says here. Thank you for all your comments and support and nice comments over the years. So again, we've often exchanged comments, haven't we, on the channel. So great that you're writing in with questions. So many thanks for all your efforts, you say, supplying us all with wonderful entertainment. You're very welcome. Your tour series are most enjoyable. Thank you. Always enjoy being taken places I may never go. Replying to your parish notices request, as I live in Queensland, Australia, and in the market for a Gore-Tex suit. Okie dokie. I'm interested to know how the rucker gear went in the heat of your American trip, ventilation and so on. Another great year with the Mr. Fly. Looking forward to 23. Hope the year is kind to you and yours. Thanks, mate. Well, thank you very much, and the same to you. Great question. The rucker gear that me and Mrs. Fly wore, you saw it on that Alaska trip. And the thing is with that, these big trips, especially when you're going for a long time, and particularly if you're going a long way away in countries where you don't necessarily know what the climate's going to like, you've got to kind of pack for all eventualities, haven't you? So we couldn't, because you're carrying kit, we couldn't take summer kit and winter kit because you can't get it all on the plane in your baggage allowance. So we had to take one bit of kit each, basically. We chose our full rucker suits. And on that trip, we had some massively varying temperatures. There was one day when we were riding down the Icefield Parkway in British Columbia when it was basically freezing, 0 degrees. Other days when we were in Oregon and Idaho, the temperatures got up. It was August and it's hot there. It got up to nearly 100 degrees on a couple of days. So those jackets, although they looked big and hefty, had to do for 0 degrees to 100. 0 degrees centigrade to 100 Fahrenheit. Don't ask me why we change halfway through, but anyway, bear with me. So you get the idea anyway. So, of course, what you didn't see was what we were wearing underneath the jacket. So on the day when it was 0 degrees on the Icefield Parkway, we had a base layer on underneath. Then we had a mid layer, a t-shirt, maybe a fleece, like a puffer jacket. The rucker comes with like a puffer jacket underneath it, a thermal liner. And then the outer, which was the rucker bit you saw. So we were dead warm with all those layers on. In the hot days, we just had a base layer, which acted as a sort of a sweat wicking layer, together with just the rucker outer with all the vents open. So it worked in all eventualities. I'm pleased to say, on the hottest of days, yes, we were hot in those jackets, as you probably saw in those videos. But it was doable. It wasn't an absolute killer. We didn't have to stop because we were too hot. They were fine. So to answer your question quickly, Cindy and Steve, the rucker gear went on absolutely fantastically. It was the right choice. If we'd taken just summer gear, we would have been too cold when we got to those cold temperatures. If we'd taken just really not such flexible winter gear, then would have been in trouble on hot days. So yeah, I love the rucker gear. I've used it now for the last, getting on for a couple of years now. It's expensive stuff, but in general you get what you pay for, don't you? And the rucker gear, if you're serious about your touring, brilliant. Okay, so thank you, Cindy and Steve. Great to hear from you. Thanks for writing in. And by the way, if you've got any questions for the next Your Questions Answered, do put them at the bottom of this video if I forget to say that again. I'll go through all the comments over time, and I'll make another list to answer in the next video. Now, I don't know how often I'm going to do these videos, but I'll basically do it when I've got enough questions. So if I've got what I think, I don't know, 20 interesting questions, I'll do another one. And also I'll take interesting questions from other videos as well. It doesn't just have to be this one, but predominantly this, bike news, whatever videos, I'll pick them up. If they're good questions, I'll answer them here. So if I don't answer your question written, do not despair. Just watch the next Your Questions Answered. I might be saving out for that. All right, and also, if I have answered your question written, don't think I'm not answering it on Your Questions Answered, because if it's a good one, I may well do, because I think some of these I've answered in writing already. Anyway, here we go. Next one. Oh my goodness, I don't know how you pronounce this. Rovi Woteep 2375. Hello, Rovi. Thank you for your question. Thanks for another great year of reviews and travelogues. My pleasure. Question for your new Q&A spot. Is there any mileage, excuse the pun, in using super unleaded fuel as opposed to ordinary unleaded? I.e., is it better for bikes' internals, and do you actually get better miles per gallon? So is super unleaded more cost effective in the long run? Great question, this, Rovi Woteep. And I do actually know the answer, because not through any effort on my part, but a couple of, about, it might be 8 months ago, and I mentioned it in the bike news then, MCN did a proper test, a scientific test on this. They took two brand new bikes, exactly the same bikes. I think they might have been Kawasaki Z650, something like that. And two riders, and they filled one up with super unleaded and one with just standard unleaded, and then they rode their 200-mile bike test loop and measured how much each had used at the end of it. Now I think, and also they swapped riders halfway through as well to counteract any differences in the riding styles, which I thought was quite good. So it's quite a relatively scientific setup, better than I could have done anyway in terms terms of, you know, making sure everything was constant. And at the end of it, the super unleaded bike did indeed get more miles per gallon. And they worked out the cost effectiveness, you know, given how much more super unleaded is it still worth doing it? And it turned out it was. And then on top of that, there is quite a lot of evidence to suggest that super unleaded is actually better for the internals of your engine, as you suggest here. So it's definitely better for your engine. It's better wear-wise and so on, I understand. And yes, it works out better from a cost point of view, it turns out, based on their tests. So having read that, I have actually changed my habits. I now run all my cars and bikes with super unleaded. It is a bit painful when you get to the tank, because certainly in this country, super unleaded is significantly more expensive than just standard unleaded, the E10 stuff. But it's supposed to be better, you know, on all counts, better for your pocket and better for your engine. Now, I have to say, in the time I've been doing it, which is about, since I read the article, probably about 8 months, I can't say as I've noticed any difference in the miles per gallon that I'm getting out of the cars and bikes. So I don't know. I'm doing that because I'm taking it as read that the MCN test was correct. So that's what I'm doing anyway. You know, make your own choices, but I thought that was quite a good test to base that on. So thank you, Rovi Woteep, for your question. Next up, Creed M3040. I like the touring videos very much. Well, thank you. This is great news. And the bike reviews as well. The bike scrans, not so much. Oh well, can't win them all. It just goes to show you can't keep everybody happy, can you, all the time? Anyway, though I do watch them, that's good. As long as you watch them, I don't care, that's good. I also like the gear reviews. Biking news excellent, as I'm in the colonies. I love the retro rides very much. So all in all, you run a great channel. Thank you, this is a great. Let's get your question. How is Carol doing on her riding? I love her input too. Happy New Year, best. Creed M3040, so thank you for that. Yeah, how is Carol doing on her ride? This is a question that comes up quite a lot, which is why I pulled this one out. And the simple answer is she's doing absolutely fine. She's in no hurry to pass the test, which is why we haven't made any more update videos, although we are planning to do an update at some point. But yeah, we've been going out in the nicer weather. It's dropped off somewhat here now. It's sort of depths of winter here now. Not much fun on the bike on wet, rainy, slippery, icy days. So I've said to her, you know, let's just put it on hold until spring, sort of thing, unless she desperately wants to go out, or we have a nice winter's day, then we can wrap up and we can go out. It's fine. But her CBT did run out, I think it was September, so she had to retake a CBT. That's her compulsory basic training, and that only lasts for a year in this country, so or 2 years, sorry. So she got to the end of her first period of that. So she's retaken that, so she's legal again for another, I think it's 2 years. And then if she passes a test in the meantime, then that's good. If she doesn't, then she'll have to do another CBT if she wants to continue riding. I did speak to her only a couple of days ago about this, and said, you know, what are your intentions? Because, you know, I'll sell that 125 if she doesn't want to ride it, but she very much does want to ride it. I don't want to put any pressure on her. At the end of the day, riding bikes, as we know, is a dangerous pastime, so I don't want to kind of force her or put any pressure on her whatsoever to do it. If she wants to do it, that's absolutely fine by me. It'd be hypocritical if I said she couldn't, but at the same time, I don't want to be the one that, you know, edges her into something that maybe she doesn't want to do and turns out to be dangerous. So that's my thoughts on it. There is no rush to pass a test. It's not like she has to ride a bike for work or transport or anything like that. She's a perfectly good car driver, so it's just a matter of finding time. Again, this last year she would have done it probably in August. That was kind of when we had most time aside. But the trip to Alaska came up, which we hadn't planned well in advance, and that kind of meant we had to do a lot of replanning around August, and that cost us quite a lot of time. So that's why it didn't happen this year. But it might happen next year. But we will keep you praised. I will make a video on that. So thank you very much indeed for that question. A number of people have asked it, so that was Creed M3040. Thank you. Okay, next up, we're getting through these now. Got another 5 questions if you're still there, sticking with me. This is from Jamie Fetter. Thank you, Jamie. Jamie Fetter 5251 to give him his full name. My question is, how do I get to do reviews on dealerships' bikes? What's the best way to go about it, as the only thing I can think of is taking one of their demo bikes out for a test run, like I was interested in buying the bike, but I'm only wanting to do a review, if that makes sense. Makes perfect sense, Jamie. No punctuation in your comment there, so I struggle with it a bit, but that's fine. I know what you youngsters are like with punctuation. It's not necessary, is it, these days, it turns out. Anyway, I digress. So yeah, so basically, if I get the gist here, I'm assuming you maybe want to start a YouTube channel, something like that, and you want to go out and ride bikes at dealers, but you have no intention of buying them and you feel a bit embarrassed about asking for them. I get that completely. We've all been there, including myself, when I started reviewing bikes. And I think the best answer I can give you here, as is usually the case, is just be honest with them and tell them what you're doing. Now, I don't know if you've already started your channel or if indeed that is what you're doing, or if you're writing reviews or what you're doing, but it might help your cause to maybe show them some of the work that you've done so they can see that you're serious. And yeah, I think there's no point in pretending you might buy it and then not, because they'll just get fed up with you, and they're unlikely to let you borrow one again, are they? And the thing is, if you tell them what you're doing, that you're interested in bikes and you want to start a channel, whatever it is you're doing, if they're a good dealer, they're going to want to encourage people to do that. And also, who knows, you could be the next Moto Bob if your channel takes off. It's only going to be a good thing for those dealers if they're involved in that, isn't it? So I think it'll shake out who the good dealers are versus the bad ones. If you get a dealer that says, yeah, by all means take it, make your videos, enjoy, then in the future, if it all goes well, then they're likely to reap some benefit out of that, aren't they? And it'll let you know who the good dealers are and who the bad ones are. Now, of course, it might be that there might be a cost involved, because, again, it depends on the dealer's policies, and they do vary, don't they? But I've had test rides before where I've had to pay for the petrol, for example, a tenner for the petrol or whatever. And sometimes you have to put a deposit on the bikes as well, leave a credit card or whatever. So there's that I think if that's their policy, then you should do that. But yeah, I think honesty is the best policy. Tell them what you're doing, and if they're a dealer worth their salt, I think they'll lend you the bike. Tell them I told you that. Won't make any difference, but it's worth a try. Thank you, Jamie, and good luck with your channel. Let me know if that is what you're doing. Drop me a link and I'll have a look. Christopher Dennis Mayer 2038. He says, hey Andy, how are the Michelin Road 6s doing on the GS? Happy New Year, mate. Chris. Thank you, Chris. Same to you. And yeah, the Michelin Road 6s, I fit them to my GS probably now, I don't know, probably 6-8 months ago, and they're doing absolutely great is the short answer. I'm one of these people that I'm not a particularly skillful rider, and I'm not that sure I'm the best place to tell the difference, the nuances between one set of tyres and another. But I have to say, they do feel pretty good, particularly when they're cold and in the wet. They're quite a sticky old tyre. The other thing I've noticed with them, compared to the tyres I had fitted before, which I can't remember what they were they Metzler Road Tech where they had before, which were fine as well, but they did make a bit of noise due to the tread pattern. They had a bit of a whiz and a whine about them, which annoyed me slightly. And as soon as the Michelin Road 6 went on, the bike just sounded quieter, which I quite liked. So that's another thing that I wasn't quite expecting. But yeah, so far so good on the Road 6s. I need to ride them, I've not done, because I've been riding other people's GSs, I haven't ridden mine a huge amount of miles this year. In fact, if I've done a couple of thousand miles on those tyres so far, I'll be surprised. So I need a bit more time with them, and I'll report back in due course. But thanks for the question, Chris. And again, a few people have asked that, hence why I pulled yours out. So Happy New Year to you as well. Okay, next up, Desmo Duke. Excellent content, Andy. Thank you, Desmo Duke. But I would like your opinion on whether the Goldwing and K1600 still have a place, since the new crop of adventure bikes like Multistrada V4S and BMW 1250 GS are excellent bikes to tour on. I can understand the use of them two up, but as a solo rider, I can't think of any advantage. And I get where you're coming from here, Desmo Duke. And I kind of agree with what you're saying here. And I'm coming at this as an owner of both a new Goldwing and an old owner of a GS. I love both bikes. And it has to be said, the reason for why the Goldwing and the K1600 should still exist, and I can talk a bit with authority on the K1600 because I also lent or borrowed one of those from BMW a couple of months ago, and I've got a few videos coming up on the K1600, so I feel kind of clued up on that bike at the moment as well. The thing is with that bike and the Goldwing is they are both supremely comfortable. Now, I'm not saying a GS and a Multistrada isn't, but particularly for your pillion, the Goldwing is more comfortable. So if you're going to be doing predominantly two-up touring, big mile munching across Europe or wherever, the Goldwing and the K1600 very much have a place to do that because they are better than the Multistrada and the GS in that respect. But there's no doubt, like I said before, the Multistradas, BMW GSs are fantastic all-rounders. If you're just going to have one bike and you can do some occasional touring two-up, absolutely fine for that. I've done a lot of touring two up on a GS, including that Alaska trip. Me and Mrs. Flyer, 4,500 miles she went on the back of the GS. Absolutely fine. So they are great. So I sort of understand where your question's going. But I do think there is still a place for bikes like the Goldwing and the K1600 because some people aren't interested in all-rounders. They're just interested in touring, with two of you. And if that's the case, then those are the bikes for you. If you can put up with the weight of them, because of course they are massive old barges. And whilst the Goldwing or Honda have done quite well with the Goldwing with the forward and reverse creep modes, which makes it easy to live with, and also the weight is a lot lower down on that bike. The K1600 I found as a shorty was quite hard to lug about your garage. Fine when you're riding it, but moving it around, bit of an issue. Although it has got a reverse gear on it, it's not quite as good as the one on the Goldwing, I would say. But anyway, I'll say no more on that because I've got videos coming up comparing those bikes soon. Chopsy recently put up a video, didn't he, comparing the Goldwing with the K1600. He stole a march on me there, the devil, especially as I already had my video in the can by the time he borrowed them. But anyway, I don't begrudge that. And I must say, by the way, congratulations to Chopsy if you're watching, because he's just passed 100,000 subscribers, which is richly deserved. There's not that many of us UK YouTubers, motorcycle YouTubers, that have over 100,000 subscribers. So well done, John, to you, sir. Excellent effort. Overdue. Good to see. And if you've not watched John's videos, Lamb Chop Rise, go and check him out. Give him a few more subscribers. All right, so there we go. Desmo Duke. That was my answer to that. Hopefully that makes sense. Okay, second from last question. From Paul Fiddler 7968. Another great article. I'm interested in the bar across your garage door. Any info or reviews you've done on it? As I say, really interested. Cheers, Paul. Yeah, that's an interesting one, Paul. That, what you're referring to, I'm just trying to think where you would have seen that. It's obviously come up in a recent video. I think it was on the SysApp video, wasn't it? You saw me putting it up or down. I have shown that many times before, and I have talked about it in previous. If you want to see it in a bit more detail, go and check out my garage talk videos. There are about 2 or 3 of those in my back catalogue. Talk spelled Torque, and I've showed you it more there, and I think I must have done a review of it at some point. Anyway, the product itself is called the Guardsman. It's the Guardsman garage door barrier. It's from a company called Image 4 Security, who you may have heard of because they're on the front end of my videos as sponsors as well of the channel. When I first saw that product, I thought that is amazing. If you've particularly got multiple bikes, it's a brilliant, again, extra layer of security that you can put around your bike. So it's from Image 4 Security. It's called the Guardsman. Again, they're relatively expensive, but they're very well made here in Britain. I wouldn't be without mine. In fact, I've got 2. I've got a double garage. I've got one on either side. If you need to check them out, then I've put a link. There's a link in all my videos because, as I say, they are channel sponsors. There's a link in the description below this video as to how you can get to their website. Tell them I sent you. But yeah, they're really good. With bike security, it's always good to have layers of security. So things like locks, trackers on your bikes, garage door barriers, everything you can do. The more security you put in the way, the less likely the thieves are to have it. Although I would say, the determined bike thief is going to have your bike whatever they do, aren't you? But certainly in certain applications like mine, for example, that garage door barrier, I think it's an absolutely brilliant idea, which is why I got involved with them. Okay, last question for this Your Questions Answered is from somebody called the catchy name of RLW85. Thank you, RLW85. And again, thank you for all your comments. Again, I recognise the moniker. We've had we've exchanged a lot of comments over the years, haven't we? Thank you. He said, or she, I've always wondered what happens if a manufacturer sends a bike for you to review and you don't like it and it's a bit rubbish. And has there ever been a bike you tested and didn't bother to make a video? Interesting question. Again, one that does come up quite a bit. And it's number one, what I would say is with modern motorcycles, there are very few bad bikes out there, and this is one of the issues that I definitely have, and I know other testers have the same problem. You have to kind of not clutch at straws, pick at straws. You're nitpicking to say that a particular bike has an issue. Generally speaking, particularly if you're talking the major manufacturers, all new bikes are good, and there's not much to not like about them. And it upsets me that because people say, oh, you're only saying good things about this bike because you're worried a manufacturer won't lend you another bike. Well, that's absolutely not the case. I can assure you there are way more bikes out there than I have time to review, and I turn down bikes for review all the time, not based on whether it's a good bike or not, just that I don't have the time to review absolutely everything. So I'm quite picky. I tend to review bikes that I think I'm going to like just because they're of interest to me. There's no fun to me riding a bike that I think I'm going to not like. That's where being a YouTuber is great, as opposed to being an actual proper journalist on, say, a magazine or something. You kind of got to review all the bikes there, whether you like them or not, and you have to go along to the launches. Whereas I'm anti-launch because I think going to launches, then you just can't help but be positive about these people have paid for a nice hotel, they give you nice meals, they wine and dine you, and then they're all hanging around you while you're making your same videos as everybody else. So if you say bad things, it's going to be kind of awkward, isn't it? So I'd never want to put myself in that position. So I actively have never been to a bike launch, and I have been invited, but they don't bother inviting me anymore because I always say no. So that's not for me, launches. I just don't think that's a realistic environment. I'd rather have one on a damp day in Slough and see how it actually works for me. Anyway, what was the actual question? I think I've drifted off there a bit, gone on to a bit of a rant. I've always wondered what happens if a manufacturer sends you a bike and has there been a bike test you didn't bother to make a video. Right, okay. So in that case, no, I've never had a bike tested that I didn't bother to make a video because, as I say, I'm selective about the bikes I have. So I only have bikes that I think I'm probably going to like. Now, some bikes have turned out to not be quite as good as I thought, but I've still made a video and I've said what about the bikes I didn't think were so good. And I have had manufacturers offer me bikes and I've turned them flatly down, not because I didn't have time, but just because I just didn't like that bike. So it's not so much that they've lent me the bike, I've not made a video, I've just said don't give me the bike because I'm going to say bad things or I'm not going to like it. So that's kind of where that comes from. But anyway, thank you for that, RLW85. And that's the last question I've got on this particular edition of Your Questions Answered. I hope that was of some interest. I haven't whittled on too long for you. But I really enjoy doing this sort of thing. It's a bit like a live stream, but a bit more controlled. And I don't have to get all nervous about it, which you do with live streams. That said, now I've got this setup working again. It took me a while to get the lighting and the mic and stuff going. This is exactly the same setup as I could use for live stream. So let me know in the comments below if you want me to do another live stream. While it's still dark and wet of an evening and we're not out on our bikes, I must admit some evenings I'm twiddling my thumbs. Well, I'm reading comments mostly, but I sometimes have thought I should do another live stream. I hadn't done one for a couple of years. Would you believe? I think it's been 2 years since my last live stream. So I'm toying with the idea of doing one. Let me know in the comments below if you'd like me to do one. And we can answer your questions live and just have a bit of a general chat. And again, a few people have asked me about getting in Chopsy and Bruce and Richie to do another one of our joint live streams. Well, now if I can get this technology tool to work consistently, there's no reason why we can't do that again. So I'll be in touch with those chaps if they're interested. And we'll do another joint live. That's good. Have a few beers, get drunk and have a chinwag about bikes. That's always good fun, isn't there? What's not to like? Anyway, leave any further questions you've got for me below. If you are going to leave questions on other videos that you want me to answer in Your Questions Answered, by all means say this one's for your Q&A vid. I'll make sure I note it down on my ongoing list, and then in a few weeks time we'll do another one of these and get those questions out of the way. So thank you very much for your support through 2022. Got some great stuff coming up in 2023. Do keep watching, do keep subscribing, hitting the like button, all that stuff that helps with the algorithm, and I look forward to speaking to you again soon. Until then, this has been the Mr. Flyer. Cheerio.